What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing the vanishing village of Anjikuni Lake. We cover a lot of mysterious disappearances on this channel, and Bill from Missing Persons Mysteries was gracious enough to allow me to use this script for a video. I wrote it for them, but it was just so interesting. I just came across it and I was like, oh my gosh, why haven't we talked about this? Each case that we cover is just as strange and bizarre as the next, but what happens when not just one person or even a group of people, but an entire village just disappears off the face of the earth with no explanation that makes any kind of sense? How could something like this possibly happen? With a person or a couple of people, there's always the possibility of an explanation in the form of some sort of human element. The people or person had some kind of accident and just haven't been found yet, or there's a human being responsible for abducting the person or people involved. Who could be the blame, or what could be the possible reasoning for an entire town's worth of people to seemingly be here one minute and gone the next? As always, we may not ever have the exact answer or the right one, but we can't just ignore these strange and remarkable events as though they never happened. Today, I'm going to bring to you the case of the entire village of Anjikuni Lake just vanishing off the face of the earth. Under the light of the full moon, on a freezing cold November night in 1930, a Canadian fur trapper named Joe LaBelle decided to stop and take shelter in a local village where he had stopped and done so many times before. Joe knew this particular village would be filled with the delicious smells of hot meals and the welcoming faces of the friendly townspeople he has come to know and love. Anjikuni Village is located at the shore of Anjikuni Lake in Kivalliq region, Nunavut, Canada, and to my Canadian friends, I really apologize for completely and totally probably butchering that. When he wandered into the village previously, he had estimated about 2,000 to 2,500 residents had been living there. He visited many of the local shops and places to eat, and also made friends with many of the lodgers and residents in general. It was a friendly village all in all, and Joe was looking forward to taking a short respite there. However, as Joe entered the village, he immediately knew that something was terribly wrong. He saw there was no activity at all going on, no smells or sounds, and most of all, he noticed there were no people either. Nobody welcomed him and insisted he come in, sit down, have a bite to eat, as was usually the case. There was nothing at all and no one moving or making a sound in this usually quite busy little town. Joe decided to have a better look around. He was going to go and see if he could find a person or see what could possibly be going on. What he found was that every single hut he went into was stocked with winter provisions and food supplies. Each house was filled with the normal belongings of the residents, like clothes and bath supplies, and recreational materials like boots and games for the children. The men of the town normally kept their rifles stacked up against the doors to either the front or back of their homes, and each home, they were exactly where they stood. The rifles were even there. Everything in the town seemed to be perfectly normal, except that it was completely devoid of people. Even stranger than everything he had already witnessed was the fact that in some of the homes, there were pots of food still hanging over where a fire had long since gone out, as though the women of the homes were preparing supper for their families when whatever happened. The kayaks were still out in the backs of all the homes, so it wasn't like the entire town decided to hop in their kayaks and go on an entire town trip. As strange as that would have been, it would have at least been some sort of explanation as to what could possibly have been going on with this town. Where were its residents? How long had they been gone? There weren't even any footprints in the snow, aside from his own, anywhere in the town to indicate where the Inuits had gone at all. There were no clues whatsoever as far as Joe could see, and nothing about the scene before him made any kind of sense. Most likely in some sort of shock and not really knowing what else to do, Joe went to the nearest telegraph office and sent a message to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP for short. Shortly thereafter, the police arrived and did their own search of the village. What their investigation uncovered was not only bizarre and shocking, but absolutely horrifying as well. Every single grave in the town's burial site or cemetery was empty. There was no trace of what had happened to the corpses or where they ended up. Witnesses did come forward during the investigation and claim that the earth around the graves were frozen as hard as rocks. These reports also suggest that the marker stones had been stacked in two neat piles on either side of the graves, confirming that this was not the work of animals. They found 7 sled dogs who had died from starvation buried under the snow just outside town limits. How did dogs of any kind starve to death when there were huts all around them filled with food? Did the Inuits purposefully starve to death these dogs who were invaluable to them and their livelihood? Why would they do such a thing? And if they hadn't done it, then what in the world happened? Many subsequent investigations were conducted, but there really wasn't much to go on. The only clue they ever received came when a few of the Mounties stopped on their way to conduct another investigation. So they're going on to do some other investigative work, and they stop at this shanty that was occupied by a man named Armand Laurent and his 2 sons. When asked if he or his sons noticed anything out of the ordinary lately, and after explaining that they were on their way to the Aniyuki village to investigate a sort of problem, the trapper and his sons recounted an amazing story that they said happened about 2 months prior. All 3 of the men claimed they had spied a bizarre gleaming object soaring across the sky just a few days before. Laurent claimed that the enormous illuminating flying, quote, thing, end quote, seemed to change shape before their very eyes, transforming from a cylinder into a bullet-like object. Bullet-shaped, I guess. He further divulged that this unusual object was flying in the direction of the village of Anjakuni. Officers at the scene saw things in the sky that were similarly strange and quite unusual. Many of them reported that while they were in the village conducting their investigations, they saw, quote, odd bluish lights, end quote, pulsating on the horizon right above the village. They watched in shock and awe as the lights just seemed to disappear into the ether, as the Inuit seemed to have done as well. Upon questioning every single one of the officers who saw this, contested claims that they were in fact only witnessing the aurora borealis. They were like, no, we know what that looks like. It's not what we saw. We saw an actual craft of some sort. The teams at the time, which we would today refer to as forensics, or at least the best they had back then that would most closely resemble them, reported that the town had been abandoned a full 2 months before Joe LaBelle had come across it that fateful November night. How is this possible if Joe LaBelle found food still burning on the stove over dying embers? Stoves, actually. It seemed to him like the food was abandoned while being cooked and the fire was burnt out on its own from nobody tending to it. If this was in fact the case, that the entire village full of people had been missing for 2 months, then who or what was cooking with their stoves? Nobody ever found a single trace of these Inuits. Joe LaBelle would later talk to reporters about this horrifying ordeal and state, quote, I felt immediately like something was wrong. In view of half-cooked dishes, I knew they had been disturbed during the preparation of dinner. In every cabin, I found a rifle leaning beside the door, and no Eskimo goes anywhere without his gun. I understood that something terrible had happened, end quote. Despite many naysayers coming forward and claiming that Joe LaBelle was new to the area and had never stepped foot in this particular village before, nor had he known the population of it, it is documented fact that the Mounties did find the Aniyuki village completely deserted, with clothes in the homes and food hanging over fires which had gone cold, as was originally reported by Joe and the original Mounties. The fact of whether or not Joe had ever been there or knew how many Inuits lives there seems irrelevant to most people, considering an entire village did, as a matter of fact, disappear all on the same night and all at the same time the Lawrence claimed to have seen this strange phenomenon in the sky. Canada boasts the second largest population by mass, but has a population of less than 40 million in the entire country. This number was a little more than 10 million for the entire country in 1931, just a year after all of this had happened in the Aniyuki village. That means there was much more land which was uncharted, isolated, and completely uninhabited back in 1930. Lake Anjakuni is located in the province of Nunavut, which is home to the most northern continuously inhabited place in the entire world. The settlement of Alert is only 500 miles away from the North Pole. The fact that something so terrifying and so mysterious could happen in a place so isolated from not only the rest of the world, but from the rest of its own country shouldn't come as much of a surprise to any community, really. To this day, there are no updates as to what happened to these Inuits, even though theories abound, as they always do. There are no factual documents or scientific evidence that claim without a shadow of a doubt what really happened to these villagers. That's all I have for you today, guys, but I just want to say, because I wrote this for MPNM, it's always like a little more condensed. There's not a lot of opinion. If what's documented is real, and these Inuits went missing with these strange lights and this strange craft in the sky, is it possible they were all abducted? I mean, or like if they were though, then how 2 months later was someone allegedly cooking on their stoves? Was someone there and they like just were making food and disappeared when they knew Joe was coming? I really, really want to hear your opinions in the comments below. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed hanging out with me. Again, I'm sorry it's so short, but this is all we got, and I just thought it was so incredibly interesting. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please go on over to MoonBearOracle and subscribe there too. I like having the support over there, even though I don't really have time to do anything with it right now. I have a lot of ideas, right? A lot of ideas with Oracle that are really coming soon, I promise. If you would like to make a donation to the channel, my PayPal, Cash App, and Patreon and Vero will be in the description box. If you donate $20 a month or more to Patreon, you will automatically receive a personal intuitive oracle reading from me. There's information in the description box for the Kindle and paperback versions of my book, Missing the Faith Theory, and my new book, bestseller, thank you guys, with Steve Stockton, which is Encounters with Evil, 101 Terrifying and True Stories, okay? And the Kindle and paperback, like I said, will be in the description box. Also, I am going to be on the show on the Powerflix Network, Disembodied Voices, on November 6th, okay? The name of the show is Disembodied Voices. The network is Powerflix. It's like a paranormal Netflix. They will give you a 3-day free trial. So if you don't want to get it for the month, just get it on like the 4th and then get rid of it. I'm going to put that podcast version of that show that I did with Dr. Kelly Schutz in the description box, a link for that. And you can find it on like so many different podcatchers. So check me out on that. The podcast, the audio version is awesome, but I really want you guys to watch me on the show Disembodied Voices too. I am definitely going to be updating you guys on that. I'm like losing my thought completely. Sorry guys, because I'm trying to keep the ending short and that just never works. If you guys would like an autographed copy of either one of my books, please hit me up at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com before you make the purchase, all right? If you would like a personal intuitive oracle reading, either a 1-hour video face-to-face live with me or a 30 to 45 minute remote one where I just use and work on your energy, build on that, and send you a private link that only you and I can see, hit me up at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. And also, if you would like a manifestation intention spray or anything that you're going through that I may be able to help you with sage bundles, crystal packs, all these things I put together that I offer at my business but can't get the website up yet. I'm going to talk about that in the chit chat video. Guys, be kind to each other. I know I'm forgetting a lot of stuff, but again, I'm trying to condense the endings here and I just don't know how because I'm so excited about everything going on. Be kind to each other, be kind to yourselves, never accept anything less than others being kind to you. Always go in grace, smile at a stranger, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.